Hello, my name is Carlos Ramston, and today I'll be presenting to you my research paper through my research presentation on the rate of corruption increase among the police department. And my professor is Mr. David Aguilar, and this is for my English 1305 class. And there have been many theories and speculation regarding the cause of crime, but on the same route of crime, less or no attention has been taken to find out the causes of police crime. In the society that is of Democrat, there is more expectation to have law enforcement department following the rule of law as well as the due process. In this case, those who enforce the law ought to abide by the law and be responsible for their decisions that may lead to certain failures. However, there is a critical issue, that is, who controls the controllers of the law. This has become an issue that is very important because the history of policing has been accompanied by so many dishonors where the law is broken by police officers and the police department fails to discover the issue or even collude in the crime. Therefore, in this research article, I will focus on the four main features: the definition of corruption, the main predisposing factors for police to be corrupt, or the causes, and various types of corruption taking place in different societies, and finally, ways of corruption prevention. And first, I'll start with the definition of corruption.
Corruption. There are many forms of corruption, including bribery and corruption. Corruption is the abuse of power or position for personal gain. There are many forms of corruption, including bribery, embezzlement, and extortion. For example, a purchasing agent for a company might take a bribe from a supplier. In return, the purchasing agent will pay more than the usual price for the goods. The supplier and the agent pocket the extra money at the expense of the company. Or, for instance, in the case of political corruption, government officials might use their positions to extort payments from a company that the government regulates. Indeed, economic corruption impedes growth. And political corruption undermines good governance. Unfortunately, both forms of corruption are still widespread across the world.
Now, corruption is also known as a moral issue, and police corruption can be defined as a policeman who uses their formal position to accomplish personal gains, as stated in the video. In other words, the misuse of public resources or public powers for the benefit of one, in this case, the police officers. The main causes for police corruption is the salaries. We can see here, for example, in Dallas and Austin, that a police officer really aren't paid that much for literally risking their whole lives for a whole year for this quantity of money. And I think we should really reconsider this. Some examples of police corruption are bribery. Also, theft opportunities where a police officer might catch an individual in a scene where they can take advantage. For example, they find some money that they're not supposed to have, that they can take advantage and just take it for themselves, since it is, nobody can judge it, and more than likely they'll be in agreement with the criminal which the money belongs, but they'll get away with it because they are the law. And here's a video on corruption and bribery.
Let me tell you the story about Chad, an American businessman in Africa. He had a brilliant idea to build a new widget-producing factory. But then, the bureaucratic reality of the developing world set in. He would have to get permits from the African equivalents of the EPA and OSHA, and numerous other permits that he wasn't even aware of. Like any other self-respecting capitalist, he would get around these restrictions through a small monetary donation, aka a bribe. He would get his factory, the government official could feed his family a nice meal, and hundreds of Africans would get jobs. What's the problem? The problem is this pattern of bribing officials to get things done creates a landed bureaucracy. Nothing gets done without bribes. This system inhibits resource-strained entrepreneurs from developing great ideas. It keeps society down. Don't pay or accept bribes. Follow society's rules. Bribery is not a victimless crime.
Bribery is simply the act of a police officer receiving, or the one who is to be favored gives a valued item to influence the officer. A good example is where an officer takes or receives money in exchange for arresting the suspect. The other type of corruption is extortion, which is more and less similar to bribery. Therefore, the type of corruption where a police officer threatens an individual to obtain money or a particular property is called extortion. Thus, a police officer might give threatening words to someone for him or her to pay the officer to not be arrested. These types of police corruption are the only one that was identified during the study was carried out by the researchers. Some solutions that we can use to prevent police corruptions is we should reconsider the salaries of the policemen fairly. Honestly, in my opinion, I think for going out every morning and working possibly 40 more hours a week, since police have a 24/7 schedules, they should really reconsider their salaries. And to prevent police corruption, there should be some projects. I'm sure they do, but they should do it with more frequency and more presentations to be presented to make all the officials who have some sort of power that they can use corruptly, so that they know that if they choose to go this route, that there will be consequences and there will be legal charges, and there should also be more programs in the police department that are in charge of anti-corruption. Some ways of preventing corruption are pretty simple. It's just simply giving the police officers some discipline. In this case, it would be a punishment by taking them to jail, etc., and also by creating a culture in which we report any misconduct or any whistleblowing so that no corruption can happen. In conclusion, changing culture in many possible ways is the best choice. Of course, with the need of a well-established police management to take certain preventative strategies. Without a well-established police department, corruption will always happen. Thank you.